Welcome to the Circle of Trust podcast with your host, law firm CMO Keith Dyer. Brought to you by LexGrow, the leader in law firm marketing strategy, training, and implementation. If you're ready to grow your law firm with predictable case flow and revenue, you're in the right place.
Hello and welcome to the Circle of Trust podcast. I'm excited today to welcome our guest, Dallin Groneman. Did I get it right?
You did, yeah.
All right. Dallin is a practicing estate planning attorney about 30 minutes north of Salt Lake City. And the towns, make sure I get these right too, are Coatesville and Downingtown. Is that correct?
No, I am in a city called Syracuse.
I'm sorry, you're in a city called Syracuse. You were talking about the other towns I got you. Yeah, so you're in Syracuse, Utah. That threw me off a little bit because I've not heard of that. You obviously think of Syracuse, New York, the first time you hear that. So tell us a little bit, Dallin, about your firm and how you got started as an estate planning lawyer. It looks like you used to be a prosecutor and you went to Creighton. Tell us a little bit about that.
Certainly. It wasn't necessarily a move that I anticipated. So at this point, I'm a solo attorney. I do solely estate planning. I don't do anything else. And I've been doing that officially since February. Now, that said, I've been doing estate planning as a side gig for about 5 or 6 years. I said before I opened up in February, I was a prosecutor for Salt Lake County between the city and the county out there since 2019. And in law school, my whole goal was to be a prosecutor. I loved it. I loved the idea of trials, and through a few clerkships that I did, I got a flavor for it. And that became my goal. I loved the idea of going to court, having trials, prosecuting, and really getting involved in the criminal arena. And when I was fortunate enough to get a position with Salt Lake County, that was a dream come true for me. And during that time, I did a lot of what most prosecutors would handle, your violent crimes and domestic violence and several other things. But around 2020, our office had an opening in what they called the white collar team, which focused mainly on financial crimes. And while I was looking at that, it sounded interesting to me. I liked the idea of financial crimes. And back then, I had a somewhat vague idea that I wanted to be a United States attorney, and I really liked the idea of prosecuting cases under RICO with the racketeering. And so I figured this would be a good leg up. And so I joined, and I soon realized that along with a lot of your typical business crimes and other financial crimes, a lot of the cases turned out to be what we call financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. Most of that was going to be defendants who are ripping off elderly people and others who are just either left alone, lonely, they might have had dementia, and just other sad situations where defendants came in and took advantage. And not long after I had joined that team, the team lead had taken the federal position that was offered to him. And so I stepped into that role. And that became my bread and butter. I was still doing your typical felony cases and handling court and going to trial, but I had taken on quasi expert position in the office of the go-to for the financial crimes. And like I said, a lot of that was dealing with estate planning or lack of it, where people were getting ripped off with either fraudulent estate plan or what have you. And at the same time in 2020, I had a few grandparents pass away. One passed away who had a trust in place, and it was interesting to see just how smooth it went, since that grandparent had it. It was well done by a very knowledgeable attorney.
Right. And you experienced the positive effects of that.
And it was interesting because at that time I had no interest in estate planning. But 2 months later, another grandparent passed away on the other side of the family, and that grandparent passed away intestate. And my folks had hired an attorney to handle the probate side of it. They had asked me, and I said, I've never done probate. At that point, I was gaining a little bit of interest through the financial crimes, but not enough to really want to take on anything. But the attorney that they hired was less than stellar with communication, to put it nicely. They didn't really hear back. Nothing was really followed through. The attorney did file the necessary paperwork and open the probate case. And one of my family members was appointed as the personal representative. But there was no guidance after that. There wasn't really answering phones, and this family member was really stuck because the estate was not very large, but unique in that it was full of random rare items. For example, a gumball collection from the 1920s, which was, what do you do with this, right? You can't just take it to the DI or the thrift store, but at the same time, what do you do? So the attorney wasn't
Worth something, but you have to find the person that it's worth a lot to.
in this house. It was just full of different things, unopened Tide detergent boxes from 1930. It was just
Oh wow.
interesting grandparent who I had not ever met for different family reasons, but that added a bit more of complexity to the case. And so I
Sure.
ended up stepping in because they were lost. And in 2020, courts were shut down around this time. And so we were on a lag. We knew that court wasn't opening up anytime soon, but we were also just barely shifting from cases being postponed to, okay, how do we handle this online, or what are the constitutional rights for a trial? Those are all being thought of. And so around this period, I had the time. So I took some time off and was able to help probate the estate. But I got a flavor of the other side. Like I said, the first experience was a trust that was well done and seeing how smooth it was. The second was really stepping into the mud and watching how an estate can be handled without a plan and all of the pitfalls that go with it. And unfortunately, how some attorneys were not as helpful as they were paid to be. And so all of that combined, it threw me into doing estate planning on the side with, of course, the permission of the office at the time. A few people had heard that I had done probate and I was getting into a little bit of will drafting, very simple stuff at the time. And family members and friends just kept coming to me, and it became, like I said, a side gig. And then last year, I realized I was making a bit more as a side gig than I was with the county. And my kids are getting older. I couldn't commit to 2-week trials anymore. Kids are in school. I can't necessarily just leave them alone. And starting the firm, I didn't expect it to be any less work or easier, but at least there were things I could do at midnight when the girls are asleep, as opposed to, hey, I'm in trial, I can't leave, trying to call a family friend or a neighbor to take care of them. So all those things kind of came together at once, and it threw me into opening up my own firm in February. And so far, I haven't gone bankrupt. So that's
Congratulations. Yeah. So it became a better fit for your lifestyle and you thought you could make more money doing it. So it's
yeah,
like kind of a no-brainer. Sounds like.
pretty much. And at the time, I was a little skeptical because, like I said, I loved prosecution. That was my goal. I never anticipated being an estate planning attorney. But at the same time, over the years, I realized that other prosecutors had left for other professions, and I wondered why. So I'd reach out to them before I really opened the firm. Why did you leave? What was the motivating factor? And a lot of it was prosecutors deal with a lot of trauma, secondary trauma from the cases that you handle. And we don't really know it until we're out of it. And so at the time I thought, oh, these cases are not going to do, they're not going to go anywhere if I leave. These victims are going to be left alone if I do something else. But then after talking with some other attorneys and really doing some self-evaluation, I realized, I'd be happier with more time with my family, but at the same time, prosecutors, we're cogs in the wheel. There's always someone to replace us, and the cases will continue to move on.
So in starting your practice, have you begun doing any marketing for it at all? Or have you begun doing any kind of outreach or what are your plans for growing the firm?
That's a bit of a learning curve for me. Like I said, in prosecution, I never had to worry about business.
Because it just came. Yeah.
People had to talk to me whether they wanted to or not. So I never really, and I find myself an extroverted person. I like talking to people. So I got along with the defense attorneys and judges and officers and anyone who came to court for the most part. But I never really had to sell or market or anything because they had to talk to me.
Sure.
And so when I started the firm, I didn't really have much of a plan. But I've been fortunate enough to have inadvertently built up a good referral system as a prosecutor, in that the defense attorneys and the judges, when they knew I was leaving and I let them know, suddenly I got a lot of referral business. Now I've tried a few other things, some which were probably really dumb ideas in retrospect. For example, I was called up by a company who does golf course advertisements, and I figured I don't know how to market. This is as good as anything else, so I gave them.
Obviously, I don't think that's a horrible idea at all, but it's not something that maybe would produce immediate results, but it's not a bad place to be. It's
And
your
that's the hope.
it's your demographic for sure. Like it's the people that you're looking for.
And I say dumb in that I didn't even research. It was they called me up over the phone, and 5 minutes later, I'd given them my card number without thinking. And in retrospect, hopefully it works out. If I turn out one client from that, then it paid itself off at least. But after that, I became a little bit more conservative on how I market, at least using money for it. One of my strategies that I've been implementing, and it's so far turned up some pretty good results, is really trying to become ingrained in my community. I haven't focused too much on Google ads or Facebook ads, which I know I need to, but instead what I've been doing mostly is, like I said, just working with the city and local businesses. For example, our town has what we call Heritage Days. It's a week-long festival, kind of like Founders Days everywhere else. And I became a sponsor of that. And that's really opened up an opportunity for me to get to know other business owners and get my face in the community itself to show, look, I grew up in the area where I practice now. My home growing up was maybe 2 miles away from my office. And so I like to really get ingrained there and show, look, I'm not just planting myself in wherever seemed convenient. I really want to stay here. And my community, it's growing pretty quick, but it still has that farm town feel where people are really, they're tight knit, but they appreciate people who stick around. And that's been one way that I've been trying to market is.
I think that's a great way. That's a great way as a new firm. You need to have the base of referrals. So that's terrific. You scale off of that, honestly, is the best way to do it.
Right.
So I think that you're doing a lot of good things. I think if I could give you any advice, I would definitely I'm sure you probably have your Google business profile set up. And that's an important first step, just to make sure that people, when they do go look for you, even if they're just looking for your name, that you come up. And you've got a website, I'm assuming, built.
I do. Yeah. One of the first pieces of advice I got and the attorneys here, I'm sure this is how it is everywhere, but the attorneys in the area, we tend to get along really well. We're very cordial competitors, of course, but it was a nice surprise to see just how much advice and help attorneys are giving me. One of the first pieces of advice was get a website and get your Google profile. Even if you don't do SEO or chase down Google ads or anything like that up front, if you're not online, you're not in business. And I did follow that, got some good recommendations for websites and some guidance on how to create a Google profile. Because like I said, I'm coming from no experience in marketing before.
Yeah.
But that was the first thing I did. And it's been a huge advantage to me. If nothing else, to watch metrics to see, okay, people look at me online and this is how many looked a month. That's nice knowing that there are numbers as opposed to just hoping the phone rings.
Do you have, and as you've begun doing this, do you have fears, questions, frustrations about how the marketing process works for law firms?
Fears for sure. Like I said, I'm coming from.
So tell us about some of your fears about it.
One fear is how reliable are my methods. Being solo, I don't really have anyone to bounce ideas off of just right in my office. I call up attorneys. But one fear is it sustainable? And is it really effective compared to other things? For example,
the right thing to do is versus another thing.
Right. For example,
there's so many choices out there of what you could do.
Yeah. And there's a million different ways to market. Not one of them is going to be wrong. But finding my own ground and what's effective for me. I have one attorney who's very successful. He relies almost exclusively on Google ads. He says, like, it's expensive.
Google ads is a big one for you. You've got a real opportunity too, I think, in a smaller community to be able to really do well with that.
And I've gotten the advice from another attorney who said, I hate Google ads. It was a crutch for so many years. And he said, once I quit it, I found other methods and made way more off of that. Finding my own ground is a fear, and hoping that what I'm doing is right. Now,
what I would suggest is that it's a combo of those things, all of them going. If you're really trying to grow, if you have an assertive, aggressive growth plan, which you're a young guy, you could grow your firm to be very large if you wanted to.
And that's my hope. Is I'm a very lazy person. So my hope is I want to grow the firm large enough that I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I think that's very possible. You could. You just got to be able to eventually put yourself in the position as the CEO of the firm and you're growing it as a business. And not to sell you or anything we do, because that's not what this is about, but that is what we help lawyers figure out, or law firms figure out is okay, let's get a marketing system that runs and eventually gets this, because you don't really have a business until you can walk away from it for a month and it still runs itself.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe would be the goal that you might have. I don't know, but that is often the goal that lawyers or attorneys that are entrepreneurial have. They want to grow a business that does all the great things they've always done, but it just doesn't require them being involved in it all the time. Or they have the opportunity to go and actually run it as a business, and they can be the CEO person figuring out the best way for the firm to move forward to help more people. So yeah, that's for sure. And so your biggest fear, it sounds like, is maybe not knowing where the next step is, or what the logical understanding of scaling through marketing looks like, which makes sense. That's, I think every business owner is that way. You got to just figure it out. Have you like read any books or gotten the advice of any other experts on this?
I have one of the books that I've read is Profit First.
I've read that book where you take the profit out or you add the expenses or more expenses. Yeah.
And that's been a huge help. I'm a Dave Ramsey fan myself. And so the way that book set up how to treat finance as a business just made sense to me. So that was one. Most of my reading is just treatises to make sure that I'm understanding estate planning the best. I don't want my legal understanding to be second to the business side, at least for now. So focusing a lot on treatises to make sure the product is right. And then I have received help from Great Legal Marketing with Brian Glass.
Oh yeah, Ben Glass.
Yep, had a few materials given to me from them and joined a few of their things as a trial. And just as a trial, that was a huge help too.
Yeah, I've been to several of their events up in DC. I know the firm well, and they've got some really good advice for sure. I know that group. Yeah. That's cool. Any others that you can think of?
Others are mostly local attorneys, people I went to law school with and I was good friends with. There's an attorney in a town nearby. As a little bit of background, before law school, I worked in a bike shop for years through college and a little after, and loved it. If I wasn't...
I remember the story. The guy would come in and he was an attorney.
Yeah, he was an estate planning attorney.
I read this about you. Yeah, he would come in and he was an attorney and you would talk to him about things. You never imagined that one day you would become a lawyer, but didn't you end up working with him?
I didn't work with him. He's become somewhat of a mentor for me rather than working with him. He's a type where I can call him up, and even though he's a direct competitor pretty much, he has no problem when I call him and say, hey, look, I'm stuck on this. I've got this question on a power of attorney, for example. I've got someone who's asking something a little different and I haven't seen it before. What do you think? And he bounces ideas off with me and is a huge guide for that. Marketing as well. He's winding his practice down slowly over the next couple of years, and he's helped a lot with kind of sending some people my way. And the firm that I originally worked for, right out of law school, I worked for a divorce firm. At the time, it was just to get some money in because I was hungry, and at the time, prosecutors' jobs were golden, and so I didn't get it right out of the bat. But I worked for a divorce firm, and although I don't personally enjoy divorce law myself, it's just I envy those who have the personality to be good and enjoy it. The boss that I worked for, his name's Ken Burton in Ogden, Utah, just a fantastic attorney. And although, like I said, I didn't enjoy the subject matter, I loved working for him. And we've kept pretty close over the years. We reach out to each other, and he's been a very good referral partner as well. Where his
That's really cool. Yeah. What a transformational. You never know when you meet people in your life what they could end up meaning to you over time. Is he the one, this is going to sound funny, but is he the one that taught you how to not be a jerk?
No, that was actually a speech given. So at law school,
I know, I'm just kidding around because I thought it was funny.
No, he was actually
on LinkedIn, yeah, or your post.
Yeah, he did teach me not to be a jerk through example. Divorce law, it's so antagonistic through the parties already. It's easy for attorneys to become antagonistic as well. And there were some jerks. There were really good divorce attorneys that we worked on the other side with, but there were some real jerks, and Ken's demeanor was a good example where he wasn't retorting back. He wasn't giving snide comments during depositions to defend opposing counsel. Instead, he was kind, and clients saw it. But more importantly, opposing parties saw it, and they can see my attorney being a jerk isn't getting anywhere.
No, it can also make
he's getting everything
work.
for his client. Yeah.
I've always felt like there are certain attorneys for certain circumstances.
And I'm of the opinion that there's never a reason to be a jerk. And coming from prosecution, with defense attorneys, we were dealing with cases with, frankly, the most at stake, people's liberty. You're looking at years in prison, life in prison on some occasions.
Yeah.
I had a death penalty case, but it's a possibility where there's the most at stake. And yet, if the attorney's cordial and professional, we're not giving away the farm, but I can still go into a negotiation room with a defense attorney and we can joke about things and talk about our families and still represent myself, the interest of the state, and defense best interest of their client. And I think that carries over into anything. Different personalities for different areas of law, but there's never, in my opinion, room to be a jerk.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I do have one guy that's a client of mine. It's also a very good friend. He's not a jerk, but he's extremely direct and knows his stuff really well. So he's like the guy you would want if you needed to scare somebody.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't call it a jerk. I would call it more like my jerk. I'm sorry, it sounds silly. So, yeah. Dallin, I'm really excited for you. If you had to wave a magic wand for where you think your firm will be in 5 years, what would that look like for you?
My hope in 5 years is to have support staff, at least a few paralegals. I would like to have 1 or 2 attorneys working for me as well within the next 5 years. The goal is to grow the firm really inside of my own community. In 5 years, if we were to expand to another city or another state, that's great. But my ultimate goal is to become ingrained in the community and be the attorney who can provide the service that people need and have a team to carry it on and help even more than just myself alone.
I got you. And do you have a financial number set to that, or does it even matter?
As long as I can pay off our student loans and my wife and I can go see Europe more than once every decade. To reach that goal, we have pulled numbers, and my wife is an attorney as well, so it's really nice to have that.
Oh, that's cool. Does she work with you in the practice?
No, she is in-house counsel for a book company out here called Deseret Book. She's their in-house counsel. We met and married in law school, and she was the smarter attorney, which is why she's where she's at. But
well, that's great that you're married to someone that knows your profession.
Yeah. But she helps pull the financial with me, and our goal is if we can, in 5 years, if we can pull in gross $1 million, that would be more than I could probably ever hope for. But if we can reach that would be meeting our own personal goals as well, of no more student loans and, frankly, being able to take our kids places that I couldn't do as a kid.
Sure. That's a great goal to have. I love that. I've really enjoyed having you on the show today. It's been fascinating listening to I love that you're just starting your firm. I think that you're the first person we've had that's literally just getting started within the year. And I'm very happy to make your acquaintance. If we can help you, for sure, let us know. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Great. Thank you, Keith. It was great.
Yep.
Thanks for listening to the Circle of Trust powered by LexGrow. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow us and leave a review. Want to grow your law firm faster? Book a free strategy call at lexgrow.com. Until next time, keep growing, keep innovating. Let's grow with LexGrow.